In our headlines tonight, Governor Obiano calls on priests of all Christian denominations to tolerate one another. The All Progressives Grand Alliance, ABGA, have kicked off its governorship campaign in Abia State with Dr. Oti as its flag bearer. Flood has left commuters traveling through Lafia-Akwanga Federal Highway stranded. And on the foreign scene, protesters march across major Australian cities against detention of asylum seekers. Good evening. Glad to have you join us tonight on the news. I am Maureen Stone Enujake. Governor Willie Obiano has called on priests across all Christian denominations to have respect and tolerate one another for the Church of Christ to unite and prevail over its contemporary challenges. Government House correspondent Kenneth Chukwuforma's report is taken from our studio.
Governor Obiano made a call during a priestly ordination mass for the Catholic Diocese of Awka. During the mass, which was held at St. Patrick's Cathedral, Awka, 13 ordinands were ordained priests. Speaking during the ceremony, Governor Obiano, who noted that the church is presently facing a lot of challenges, said that with divisions, Christians cannot make any headway advocating love among Christians. Felicitating with the newly ordained priest, Governor Obiano reminded them that they have entered a very important vocation, charging them to be shepherds of the flock of Christ and not wolves. The governor commended the Catholic community in the diocese for accommodating non-indigenous priests serving in the diocese, describing their disposition as Christ-like.
And the same day is an opportunity to bring to the parents to allow many of the children to go into other vocations, the priesthood, sisterhood, brotherhood, knighthood, and all the hoods. I always like to admonish the priests anytime I have the opportunity. Please respect other denominations. With that, we will be stronger. Respect other is very important. I go on, I will make a challenge in attack.
Earlier in the homily, the Catholic Bishop of Awka Diocese, Most Reverend Paulinus Ezokafo, reminded the newly ordained priests that they have been called to be workers in God's vineyard according to the mind of Christ, urging them to constantly study the Bible and pray to be able to succeed in their vocation. The Catholic prelate applauded Governor Obiano for the very cordial relationship that exists between his government and the church, describing it as a prerequisite for meaningful development in the state.
The All Progressives Grand Alliance Party, ABGA, may be on the path of clinching the Abia State's executive power as Dr. Alex Oti presented himself as the flag bearer for the party in the forthcoming gubernatorial election in the state. Correspondent Ejika Bana's report is taken from our studio.
Ngwa High School field, venue of the campaign flag-off, was filled to the brim with stakeholders and ABGA faithful. Governor Willie Obiano, represented by the Deputy Governor, Dr. Nkemokike, declared support for Dr. Oti, who himself will hopefully perform like what is obtainable in Anambra, saying that support for him is a welcome to transparency and accountability.
I came to support one man I personally believe in. This man never. Even in Anambra, Ohuma even Anambra, Ibaboko and Anambra. If you want governance of accountability, if you want governance for the people of Abia, make sure you elect Alex Oti Ugwabia. Come next year, May 29th.
Senator Victor, while introducing Dr. Oti, described ABGA as the Igbo identity, saying that Dr. Oti will help unite Ndi Igbo to have a stronger voice at the national level. Senator Ume said that having been part of Dr. Oti's campaign in 2015, where his mandate was stolen, urged Ndi Abia to help him reclaim his mandate for good governance.
I am an amateur. I told you about Tinoqua, or no Afano. I say no Quafo, no Quafano, or no Party and Biboje, Jay,
For his part, the ABGA hopeful for the 2019 gubernatorial election in Abia State, Dr. Alex Oti noted that they protected their votes in 2015, but it was stolen, urging his people to be steadfast and support him in his struggle to reclaim his lost mandate, adding that protection of votes come 2019 is a collective effort.
I want to encourage you to be steadfast, because on Hamadike Wolaya, now, in 2015, the pharaohs of Abia must obey. Yes. They must come down. Yes. They must let our people go. I cannot retreat. I cannot surrender. Yes.
Earlier, the deputy chairman of ABGA South, Mr. Uchenna Okabwe, revealed that ABGA is a party that supports people with pedigree and not just anybody. Honorable Dozen Wankwo and Haji Sani Chinkafi, Transition Committee Chairman in Anambra, among others, were on ground to support Dr. Alex Oti in his quest to become the next governor of Abia State.
The federal government has been urged to take proactive measures against insurgency and the activities of herdsmen in parts of the country. The new chairman, Christian Association of Nigeria, CAN, Anambra State Chapter, Reverend Dr. John Ntubisi, made the call while stating the stand of CAN on the activities of herdsmen in some parts of the country. Njideka Okoye has the details.
Speaking to ABS in an interview in Onitsha, Reverend Ndubisi, who spoke on behalf of CAN, Anambra State Chapter, condemned the activities of herders in parts of the country, especially in Plateau, Maiduguri, and other northern states, where innocent people, mostly Christians, were killed in a cold blood without any punitive measure from the federal government to curb the ugly incidents. The CAN chairman regretted that cows are now valued more than human life, describing the act as barbaric, and called on the federal government to rise to the challenge of security of lives and property of the citizenry. Dr. Ndubisi expressed optimism that Nigeria is capable of bringing the perpetrators to book if the security apparatus is equipped, suggesting that Nigeria can ally with other nations to combat the ugly trend.
Whether we will tell ourselves that Fulani herdsmen have beaten down the military strategies. I don't think so. But if we think that Fulani herdsmen and their attacks are becoming too cumbersome that we cannot handle, we should not shy away from asking for help. Ally ourselves with other communities or other nations that could, come to our help, so that we combat this issue once and for all. For I believe that Nigerian soldiers are full-fledged professional combatants who, by their skills, will displace these Fulani herdsmen, the marauders. They will displace them.
On the 2019 general elections, the new CAN chairman said that for the country to have a free and fair election, there must be a level playing ground for all, calling on the federal government to provide a safe political climate. Njideka Okoye, ABS News.
The Nigerian Air Force Air Task Force ATF of Operation Lafia Dole successfully neutralized several Boko Haram terrorists at communities of Bulagalaye, Kwakwa, both in Borno State. This was contained in a press statement signed and issued to reporters by the Director of Public Relations and Information, Air Vice Marshal Olatokunbo Adesanya. Adesanya said the successful airstrikes on both locations were a result of efforts to trail and neutralize fleeing terrorists after Nigerian army troops had repelled the attack on the location around Bama. Upon receiving reports of the attack, the ATF scrambled an intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance ISR platform and the Alpha jet aircraft to locate the fleeing terrorists. Consequently, the insurgents who were seen assembled at the staging area in Balagawagaye began to disperse upon sighting the attack platforms. As a result of the air strikes, the Boko Haram terrorists were neutralized while their vehicles and weapons were destroyed, leading to a thick cloud of black smoke. Commuters traveling through Lafia-Akwanga Federal Highway linking northeast parts of the country were yesterday left stranded for several hours following the triennial rainfall that flooded the highway, making it impossible for vehicular movement within Lafia-Akwanga Road. The commuters and the residents of Lafia-Akwanga and its environs have called on the federal government to find solution to the situation, which they attributed to the narrow nature of the highway. A businessman, Mr. Joshua Abiku, who was traveling from Benue to Abuja and had been stuck for hours waiting for the floods to subside since the only road connecting the area was completely submerged. This has been a recurring issue on this road year in, year out without government attention. We want the government to dualize the road or create a bypass to serve as an alternative route along this axis. When contacted, the federal controller in charge of Nasarawa State, Mr. Taiwo Wasiu, promised to reach out to his officers to assess the situation and the extent of destruction caused by the flooding in the state. Thousands of people have marched across major Australian cities calling for an end to the country's offshore detention of asylum seekers. Protesters took to the streets to mark the 5th anniversary of the policy's reintroduction when in 2013, Canberra significantly toughened its stance, signing deals with the Pacific nations and declaring that anyone arriving by boat had no chance of being settled in Australia. Canberra says its policy deters people from embarking on treacherous sea journeys, but rights groups and the UN have slammed the country for turning its back on vulnerable people as reports of abuse, suicide, and despondency filter out of the camps. Father Dave Smith, who recently returned from a visit to the Manus camp, said, "Any country that openly rejects compassion and instead tortures people who we know are innocent in order to make them a deterrent has somehow lost its soul." Canberra has tried to resettle those recognized as refugees to other countries such as the U.S. More than 100 have been transferred to the U.S. as part of a deal made between the two governments under the administration of former U.S. President Barack Obama. And now sports. Huddersfield has signed the former France under-21 striker Adama Diakabi from Monaco for an undisclosed fee. Diakabi has agreed a 3-year contract with the Premier League club after completing a medical earlier this week. The 22-year-old joined Monaco from Rennes last season, but made just 10 League One starts. He netted 3 goals in all competitions for Monaco and made 5 Champions League appearances. Diakabi will now head to Germany to link up with his new Huddersfield teammates at the training camp. And remember that you can follow news and programs on ABS from any part of the world by logging onto our websites, www.absradiotv.com and at www.facebook.com/ABS Radio Television, and following us on Twitter and Instagram at ABS Radio TV. And just before we go, a recap of the main points. Governor Biano has called on priests of all Christian denominations to tolerate one another. The All Progressives Grand Alliance, ABGA, has kicked off its governorship campaign in Abia with Dr. Oti as its flag bearer. Flood has left commuters traveling through Lafia-Akwanga Federal Highway stranded. And on the foreign scene, protesters have marched across major Australian cities against detention of asylum seekers. And that does it on the news tonight. Thanking you so immensely for watching. My name is Maureen Stone Enujoke. Good night.